called abductive reasoning. Abductive reasoning. It starts with two E lists, right? Evidences, explanations, reasoning back and forth between these two helps us determine which is the most reasonable inference. But what if we didn't use the crime scene we described here, and we focused instead on the empty tomb of Jesus, on the resurrection? Could this process we just used apply to the resurrection? Now, most of you are familiar with all the cases we make for the resurrection, so I just want to bring to you a slightly different perspective, okay? We already know that this single claim is the most important claim of evidence in all of the New Testament. Would you agree? Paul tells us that. If this is the one thing, as an atheist, I needed to understand, can I trust this is reasonable? Is this the most reasonable inference from the evidence? And Paul tells us this, that this isn't true. There's two things going on here. Number one, your hope is misplaced because it's all a lie, but also we're liars. We've been lying to you guys. So I think we need to examine this claim, right? Okay. We're going to do it using Gary and Michael's book. Most of you probably already possess this book, right? You're already on it. I was not familiar with this book as an atheist, okay? But when I read it later, I recognized, I don't think it was even written yet, but when I read it later, I did recognize that it possessed a few of the doubts I had. Now, he gives you a list of minimal facts, minimal pieces of evidence in the room. Remember, Gary surveys all of New Testament scholarship, from the most conservative scholars to the most liberal scholars, and he tries to find the commonalities that all scholars would accept and affirm, regardless of where they are on the spectrum. And in there, that list of, what is it, 12, or how many he's got? But I saw 4 that I would have said maybe. 3 for sure I would have agreed to. The 4th I might have, but that was it for me. I was not going to give you more than those. So I wanted to share with you the 4 that I might have given you as an atheist, and then I'll show you how I resolved them, okay? So here are the 4 that I would have said, or some version of these 4, would have been true for me. Number 1, that Jesus was crucified and buried. That was not a controversial claim to me. I agree with Bart Ehrman, who's a pretty big skeptic, right, that this at least is true. Now he's actually not even agreeing to this. You know, he's just changed his position. He used to believe that he was buried, but now he's saying he didn't get a burial because the theory he wants to run in right now requires the body to not be in the tomb ever. So he's had to change his position on the burial. But for all this time, he's always held, as a skeptic, that Jesus was crucified and buried. I don't think there's really much, to me, it's not a controversial claim. It certainly does not mean that Jesus rose from the dead. So what? So what? Lots of people were probably crucified and buried. Who cares? 2, the tomb was empty. I think if there's a way to get this thing done with in the 1st century to go game over, there's 2 ways to do it. 1, get the body out and drag it around town. Number 2, get the witnesses to recant. You do one of those 2 things, you can probably end this early. That clearly didn't happen. That's not that controversial to me, that the tomb was empty and no one ever produced his body. So what? Does not mean he rose from the dead. Right? 3, the disciples actually made a claim. So what? Now you can say they believed it or they didn't believe it. They made the claim at least. So what? Doesn't mean it actually happened. I would have even given you that. Now this 4th one, you'd had to kind of wrestle me with this one, but I'll give it to you for sake of argument today. But as an atheist, I would have wrestled with this one. That they were transformed afterwards. At least I would just give you this. They sure appeared to make a significant dent in the thinking of the culture pretty quickly. At least I'll give you that. Doesn't mean it's true though. But I would have given you these 4 minutes. In other words, what I've tried to do here is develop an E-list for you. Remember how we had the E-list in the homicide, in the death scene? All the things we saw, dead body laying down below dead ones. We're doing the same thing here in this crime scene. Trying to give you the minimum pieces of evidence that I would have agreed to as an atheist. So that's one E-list. What's the other E-list? Well, that's all the ways we could explain these pieces of evidence. And I'm going to offer for you, I think 7. We're not going to do a couple all night, but I'm going to offer 7 that I would say are in the spectrum of responses. But unlike the debater with William Lane Craig, I would at least give you that this actually happened. I'll give you this one possibility, okay? But for now, I'm just going to list them. Only the last one is the Christian answer. The first 6, I would have offered something in those categories as an atheist. But the bottom one, hey, they're just accurate. That's the Christian response. The only question, of course, is like any crime scene, any scene you're investigating, given these evidences and these explanations, which of these explanations is the most reasonable in light of these evidences? That's how we work every scene. We're going to do that with this scene. But I think these others we can get through quickly. Here's the first one. Maybe they're just wrong. Maybe he didn't die at all. Now we know this is what we call the swoon theory, right? But this idea is, hey, they're wrong because Jesus didn't die. I just want to walk you through two pieces of hidden evidence that I think are powerful in making the case this is crazy. And maybe some people will say, well, gosh, I don't think that anyone's making this claim anymore, are they? Well, actually, they are. I get emails all the time from skeptics who will make this claim. So someone's still talking about it. Let's just deal with it, okay?